Hey, September 28th, 2020. I hope everyone who's celebrating Yom Kippur today is having an easy fast and all that kind of stuff. I'm a bad Jew. I totally screwed up the days on that, so I'm here live with you. David, you don't look like Anthony at all. Where's Anthony today?
Anthony is flying right now, so I get to come in, bring a little bit of hair to the show, and have a little fun with you guys today.
All right, let's have a hairy situation. Hey everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live with me, Glenn Hausman, and today we've got Mr. David Mignano. You normally see him backstage being a producer and all that kind of stuff, but because Anthony is on assignment, we're going to have David on today. David, I really just wanted to say so-and-so is on assignment. I always pick that up from those news shows when someone had the day off or couldn't make it. They always said they're on assignment. I always found that suspicious.
That's kind of one of those things where, you just have to say it when you have the chance because you may never have it again. But right. Anthony's assignment is not very inconspicuous. He's actually flying out to a location right now. We're going to have a very special show coming up that Glenn, I'm sure, will tell you about. So Anthony's getting ready to do that. So, yes, he's on assignment, but just kind of a regular assignment.
Yeah, that's right. The assignment is he's going to Vegas, and I am not going to Vegas. So I'll be honest with all of you. I'm a little bit jealous. I need to get my Vegas on, and it looks like things are starting to get back. Man, I was really surprised. I've just reported about it today. You can check our report at No Vacancy News today. You'll see it on our social media at novacancynews.com. But Florida is reopening 100% completely. I'm pretty excited about what that means to travel and tourism potentially, David.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it means a lot of things can start getting back to normal. Obviously, there's still the concern of relapse, I guess, in sensitive cases. But at some point, we have to at least take the steps to start bringing ourselves back to normal. And of course, have a cautious eye, make sure we are doing it responsibly. But the more responsible that we are while we take these steps, the sooner that we can get back to normal life. And it's very exciting from a life standpoint, but also from a, obviously, tour and travel standpoint to see these places getting better.
I love the word responsible. And I think that's something that I learned a lesson last week when I went over to Arizona. And I want everybody out there to know we are currently waiting for Chip Rogers. He said it's not letting him in. No, he's got the wrong thing.
I will take care of that, Glenn, by all means.
Just send him the correct link. Yeah, so he's going to go do that. Meantime, why don't I tell the audience about my experience last week? David, go take care of that issue, trying to get him in, and I will carry the show for a minute or two. All right, so last week, I had the great opportunity to go down to Phoenix, as you call Thursday show. We had Ron Pohl on. He's the SVP, COO. And if you didn't catch that episode, I highly encourage you to go check it out at novacancynews.com, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the usual places. And while you're at it, why not go ahead and give us a subscription on YouTube? I really want to try to get those numbers up as we're trying to build our community in that location. You guys done such a great job supporting us here in Facebook and LinkedIn and all those other sources. We really want to try to get the word out to the folks at YouTube. After all, they are the second busiest social media site out there. So we want to make sure that happens. Hey, loving my background. I do have this background up for a very specific reason, and that's because when I was in Phoenix last week working with, like I said, the good folks over at Best Western, helping them prepare for their annual virtual conference, I did this great event where we got to do a panel with the board of directors. You're going to really love what they had to say. It was really fascinating, and I'm going to be recording some other information with them. But they put me up this great resort, Mountain Shadows. It's apparently David. So just saying, I was over at this Mountain Shadows resort over there. Originally opened in 1961. Redeveloped 4 or 5 years ago-ish. Woodbine, you guys developed it out there. If anyone from Woodbine Development is watching, let me know exactly when you redid it. Plus, I really want to get these guys. Hey, Bill, that's your Mountain Shadows. Dude, Bill, man, I love this hotel. I had such an incredible experience at this hotel. For the first time, David, in this COVID world, I didn't feel COVID on top of me the whole time. It wasn't in my heart. It wasn't in my soul. I felt free. I felt, dare I say, normal at this resort because of all that they were doing, which I will bring. Wait, David, hold your.
We're going to talk about that in a
thoughts.
second. We have a very special guest coming on now.
That's right. Let's bring him on. Chip Rogers. David, I'll put you in the back. Chip, great to see you, my friend. How are you, sir?
Glenn, I'm doing great. You still don't have a haircut.
I went. You know what? I got a haircut. I went to the Supercuts last week, Chip, and I decided to go with a little bit longer. I don't know. The women in my life say it's okay. I don't know.
I would trust them more than I would trust me. So
I got to live with them. So you're right about that. So Chip, I got to be honest with you. I'm getting really angry at our government at this point. I'm really feeling like they're all going about doing their thing. They're all worried about the election and all that kind of stuff. And meanwhile, they're leaving millions of people in the hospitality industry behind. How are you seeing it? What's going on in your world as we're speaking today on September 28th?
Look, Glenn, I think you captured it exactly right. They seem more concerned with their job than about the millions of Americans who are losing jobs in our industry, but others as well. And that's really not what the term public service should really be about. Public service is at its root serving others. And they're so concerned about getting out of town so they can go campaign. And it's, we hear a lot about bubbles, right? You have the NBA bubble, you have the NHL bubble. Major League Baseball is going to go into a bubble when they play the World Series. But these people live in a bubble where it doesn't appear that the rest of the world can penetrate that bubble and get them in touch with reality. There's a lot of people that are really hurting, and the only thing they care about is politics, politics, politics. How can the Democrats blame Trump? How can Trump blame the Democrats? How can, what do my latest poll numbers look like? If I make this decision, is it going to cause people to be less likely to vote for me? We're at a time of a tragic event that has now extended 6 months. And they're still behaving this way. It's just, it's really disheartening.
It really is. And I got to tell you, everyone has been touched. Our great producer, David, who had a full-time job, was put on furlough for the hotel company he worked with. And he just found out just yesterday, and we'll bring him on to talk about this later, is that now he's been officially laid off immediately because these hotels can't make money and they're being ignored. And I got to tell you, Chip, I'm not in a political party. I say that all the time because I can't stand the extremes on either side. I'm a guy of compromise. I'm a guy who likes to be moderate in the middle. And I do not understand what these politicians are thinking right about right now. Well, I know what they're thinking. They're trying to protect their own asses. But the fact of the matter is, everyone out there is suffering. Are they going to do anything before November 3rd? Or are more people going to get laid off? Because I know you guys put out a report over there. 74% are saying if we don't get immediate relief, more layoffs are going to happen. Please take it away. I'm a little fired up today.
No, as you should be. We need more people fired up, just like you, Glenn. That's the problem, is not enough people are fired up. We have been able to generate well over 200,000 letters. And we think about that, just put that into perspective. You're a member of Congress. You're getting not hundreds, but potentially thousands of letters on this one subject. And yet what you care about most is making sure that you get reelected to your seat. I was never a term limits guy because the framers didn't create that in the Constitution. And I kind of felt like, look, every 2 years, if you're in the House, every 6 years, you're in the Senate, that's your term limit, that people have a chance to vote on you. But given the narcissism of the current crowd, perhaps term limits is the answer. And maybe we'll get to a point where people care about the people they serve more than they care about their own jobs. And that's really what we're dealing with here. Take, for example, the PPP program. The PPP program, by all intents and purposes, was a success in many ways. Was it perfect? Right. But it was a success.
Well, let's just put that into context. There's no way it could have been perfect. It was put together very quickly under high duress situation, but I think they did a pretty good job for what was happening.
Exactly right. So here's the key, though, is that when they created that, Glenn, even in the law, it states that this is for 8 to 10 weeks. I mean, that's how they figured out how long you had to pay back. That's how they figured out, determined how much you could borrow against your payroll. Remember, it was 2 months of payroll. So 8 to 10 weeks is what they were looking at. Great. Everyone at that time back in March thought this would be over within 8 to 10 weeks. So here we are 6 months into it. And if the plan was such a success and PPP was so successful, why not go back and do it again and fix the 8 to 10 week period? That's really easy. And give those businesses that have been hurt the most another chance to borrow more money. there was $150 billion left over the last time because they created the limitations such that you could borrow so little
right.
that even when everybody had exhausted, those who needed the money had exhausted their opportunity to borrow, there was still money left over. So why not go back and lend that to those businesses that have been hurt most?
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, that takes some care and dedication, neither of which I'm feeling are coming from Congress right now. I'm particularly annoyed by my local congressional representative because all he is doing is complaining about the other political party and how horrible they are, but offering no solutions to the problem. And this is not just my politician. It seems like all of them. All they want to do is talk about how evil and horrible the other party is and create more division and separation from us instead of coming together and finding out real solutions that are going to get us through the most critical situation that we've seen in generations. And I mean generations, right, Chip?
And, well, we've never seen anything like this in our industry, that's for sure. We're going to have the lowest occupancy rate in the history of the hotel industry. You know, it's interesting you say that, Glenn, because I'm not going to tell you who, but we obviously speak to members of Congress all the time, every day, and we'll continue to have to work with these people. But there was a high-ranking official, senator, who everybody knows his name.
Yep.
And we were having a conversation with him, and I had on the phone with me were 3 of the major global brand CEOs, and we were laying out, here are 4 or 5 things that can be done to help save our industry and save millions of jobs. And yet for 30 of the 35 minutes we had with this person, all he did was talk about how bad Trump this, Trump that, Trump. And, you know, we're like, guy, come on. We get it. You don't like President Trump. That's fine.
Right.
The issue today. Flip that over. We're talking to somebody on the other side of the aisle. And all they want to talk about again and again and again is how bad Nancy Pelosi is and how she won't let this happen. And we're like, okay, we get it. But we're here for solutions. We've just laid out a list of solutions that will help. You know, 2 things that can be done really simple and not cost taxpayers any more money. First, you have $150 billion left over in the PPP. Reallocate that and let that money go back out in a second chance of PPP to those businesses that have experienced 30% or more revenue loss compared to the same time last year. That's helping the people that have been hurt most with money that's already been appropriated. The second thing you can do on the Main Street Lending Act, which has been an absolute miserable failure, is to just simply fix the terms by which people can borrow against the Main Street Lending Act. Right. You know, when Main Street came out, Glenn, they were so proud out there championing it. You can go find the video clips. They're all talking about this is 500 and whatever.
You can find that on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah, and we're going to leverage that to $2 trillion. If you remember them talking about leveraging it to trillions of dollars, of that 580 or whatever they passed, like $1 billion has been lent out. Now, if I had a program I created that was supposed to be saving all these businesses, and 6 months into it, only 1 out of 585 had been allocated, there's no way you call that anything but a failure. So go back and fix the qualifications for getting those Main Street loans. If you do that, there's all sorts of demand out there, but you got to fix it.
That is interesting to me. I had no idea the situation was that, and I'll use the word ridiculous, because they're just not paying attention at all when it comes to this. So perhaps you could explain what the Main Street Lending Act is exactly and how that might fit into the CMBS loans, which, as your organization put out, the American Hotel Lodging Association, something like 24% missed their payments in July, and you probably have August numbers coming real soon.
Yeah, and August numbers are along those same lines of delinquency. We've never had anything like that when a quarter.
What is it, 1.8% were delinquent or something like that in 19? Yeah.
Well, when you started this year, you were at about 1%, and now you're up to a quarter of all hotels are already delinquent. And that's just on the CMBS side. Of course, you're beginning to see that on the traditional lending side as well. Look, Main Street, with CMBS, the problem there is that there are restrictions on additional debt. So you do have to come up with something creative. We have worked with members of Congress, and there's a great plan out there called the HOPE Act, which has I think 50 some odd sponsors on it already that could solve this problem. So that's one thing. By the way, the Treasury Department could solve that themselves by setting up a different facility to create preferred equity as opposed to a loan. So setting that aside, there are CMBS answers out there if they would do it. The more concerning part on the Main Street Lending Act is the way they set up the qualifications. Essentially, if you have real estate debt, you can't qualify for one of these loans. So that means if you're a hotel, if you're any type of commercial building, all these urban centers where no one is going to work. I mean, in Washington, D.C., where my office is, you can walk the streets and virtually see no one.
Right.
All these shopping malls, all of these places that have any type of real estate debt can't qualify for the Main Street Lending Act loans. And yet they're the ones that need it most. And so it doesn't make any sense. If they would simply change the rules of lending the same way that a traditional bank evaluate the health of a proposed borrower. So if I come to a traditional bank and I say, look, I own a commercial building and we have 30 companies that lease out from me, and their leases range from 1 year to 20 years. And here's what I owe. Here's the leases I have in place. A commercial bank will look at that and say, okay, is that risky or not? Am I willing to do that or not? That's all we're asking for, is for them to treat this the same way the traditional lending institutions treat it. And if they did that, you would have all sorts of employers and businesses signing up tomorrow to gain access to the Main Street Lending Act. And again, I'll say it again, the money has already been appropriated, so it's just sitting there.
So it's just like faceplant time, because it's there, and it seems like all it takes is some aide to write something up, and then with the stroke of a pen or an executive order or something like that, we could get this done. I'm just beyond, because our urban cores are in such danger right now. And it's not just the office buildings and the hotels, it's all of the services that support all of those things. Think about those restaurants, those bars that everybody goes to for happy hour. I think in downtown Manhattan, all of those lunch places in Wall Street that make a fortune from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. that are never going to see business again. Cleaners, I could go on and on and on and on. So is there a solution here, Chip, or are we really beholden to politicians that are disinterested with helping their constituents right now?
Well, of course, the long-term solution is the vaccine and therapies. There's no question about that. And we appear to be getting closer to that. And that's good news. I mean, setting aside all politics, this Operation Warp Speed, if it's able to create a vaccine in the time period that it looks like it will be, that's something that's never been done in human history. And that's pretty amazing. Okay. Right. So that's the ultimate answer, because that's when people get back to normal. But, I was on a news service the other day interviewing me, and one of the hosts said, I went and stayed at a hotel, and I told, one of my colleagues, and my colleague was so upset at me, saying, how can you possibly stay in a hotel? That's so dangerous. And he asked me, he said, what's your response to that? And I said, my response to that is the person making those statements really needs to understand science and get a better news source.
That's right.
That is such a problem right now, Glenn, as you know, is all the incredible fear that's being created. And so much of it, by the way, is related to politics. And that's absurd. To be fearful of going and staying in a hotel when scientists are telling you that staying in a hotel is just as safe as going outside and playing golf, and you still have that fear, that just tells me that you're the problem, not the solution.
Right. Yeah, and I totally understand. It's a weird time, and this is why I'm always the guy in the middle. I don't think anyone's right. I don't think anybody's wrong. I think the answer to all of this stuff kind of lies in between. I will tell you this, Chip. One of my 16-year-old sons, we stayed in Rhode Island for Rosh Hashanah last weekend. Over dinner last night, he said to me, it was so great going away. It felt normal. He didn't feel like there was any issues whatsoever at all. So that is the reality of it. If teenagers can feel safe and secure in a place, and I know teenagers' brains aren't developed and they do stupid stuff, but he's a smart kid, and he's right on about that. And as I was saying before you got on air, I stayed at this Mountain Shadows resort, and I'll talk more about that after our segment is done, but I don't think I've ever felt so comfortable in a hotel ever. It was they did such a great job, and they took precautions, but the precautions felt like they were in the background in terms of psychologically. I mean, they had masks on and stuff like that, so I could see it was present, but I didn't feel the weight of COVID on me. So I know that hotels can do it right. They could get people excited about travel again, and the more that people could get out there and travel, I think the quicker we're going to hit that tipping point and get back to a normal, vaccine or no vaccine.
Yeah, look, Glenn, and I experienced it as well. Hotels, I've been in a number of hotels. Airlines, I'll be on a flight again tomorrow. I think I got my 25th flight since March.
Amazing.
In fact, and I know this is painful economically, but boy, it's nice to get through the airport right now because you can do it so quickly. But I do wish that people were back in the airport again, even though the lines get longer.
Right.
If airports are clean and safe, and I should say airlines are clean and safe, and hotels are clean and safe, and prices are better than they've been in a decade, why not get out there? But there's just such fear mongering going on right now. Look, there's a way to live your life and be safe and be healthy and have no greater risk than you did back, the same time last year. There's a way to do that. But here's the thing, is that where we started, and that is that this industry is either going to get another lifeline to help us through until the spring, or we're not. And if we're not, the devastation is going to be significant. In that same poll you cited a moment ago, 74% of hoteliers said they're going to have to lay off more people, if there's no further assistance. But an even scarier statistic out of that poll was that 2/3 said the maximum they can make it is between now and 6 months.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's really, really scary. Here's another thing. It seems like all the quarantine numbers are getting, all messed up again. I got back from Arizona, and honestly, I'm not sure if I should or shouldn't have filled out some paperwork. There was nobody there, but I think they may have showed up after I already deplaned and stuff like that. Anthony's on his way to Las Vegas right now. He's all concerned about the quarantining thing. Without some sort of cohesive national plan, it seems like all it's doing is creating confusion and making people be indecisive about when, where, and when they would want to travel. Why would I go to Las Vegas if I am not sure what the situation is going to be when I come back and things keep changing so quickly? How do you kind of working through that kind of pickle?
Well, first of all, you should follow the CDC, and the CDC recently came out and said those 14-day quarantines are not even necessary. So these, again, are politicians who go to bed at night and they make themselves feel good by doing things to pacify certain groups of people.
Oh, they remind me of the politicians that created security theater in the airports after 9/11. They felt really good, but it doesn't really necessarily do anything.
Look, the thing is that we're going to be able to look back at this, and this is quite interesting. We do have what's known as a federalism type of government, and what that means is 50 states, and they essentially govern things. And I know there's, in certain times there's like this, there's a lot of anxiety around there not being a single federal plan, but then, constitutionally, the states do have enormous amounts of power. But what's interesting is we'll be able to go back, 6 months, a year from now, if we're honest about it, and if we can get some honest media coverage about it, and figure out which policies worked and which policies didn't work. And the two things that I look at, number one, is death rate per million people. Obviously, you're not going to have as many people die in Wyoming as you are in New York. That's obvious. So you need to look at it based on population. The second thing you've got to look at is what happened with the economy. Because yes, you could clamp down, lock down everybody in their house, but if everybody loses their job, suicides go through the roof, drug use goes through the roof, violence goes through the roof. You haven't accomplished anything. You've made the situation worse. We'll give you a perfect example. And I don't know that this is going to be the case long-term, Glenn, but we should do this. Take a look at the policies in the state of New York and what happened there. And I know that New York was hit right out of the gate first and foremost because some of the science wasn't where it needed to be.
That's
right. I'm not blaming Governor Cuomo, but I think you should look at the policies that were implemented there. And then in my original home state of Georgia, look at what happened there. And they got obviously all sorts of, the governor was criticized everywhere for opening up, quote, too soon. Well, if you look at the death rates per million population of those two states, and New York and Georgia actually population-wise aren't that much different. I think New York's like 3rd or 4th, and Georgia's like 9th in the country. So they're not that much, two big states. The death rates per population in Georgia are actually lower than New York. The unemployment in Georgia was just released last week. It's down to 5.7%. Wow. Almost back to where it was.
Wow.
So we can look back at this and determine which policies actually work better.
Right.
I'm not passing judgment yet. There's still a ways to go. But I think we may come to the conclusion that total lockdowns, putting 90% of the restaurants in New York City out of business, is not a sane policy. It's not the right way to go.
Right. I totally agree with you, Chip. And I don't want to condemn any state for what they do, because I already set it up that certain people are right, certain people are wrong. It's a learning curve. We can't blame anyone, but we can take 6 months of learning and understanding and try to make best practices decision from this, while also being flexible enough to make changes as we learn more. But it seems at this point in the cycle, the case is clear, and we need to find the right balance between saving lives and saving the economy. And I know there's a group of people out there that would be like, we have to save every single life. But by saving every single life, it gets back into what you said. Drug abuse goes up. People lose their jobs. Suicide rates continue to go up. So there is no easy answer. So for everyone out there, when you think whatever answer you have is absolutely the correct one, I urge you to think about it in several different ways that we have to kind of figure out the best case scenario and just try to move forward with this. And Chip, I think this speaks directly to what's going on right now in Florida versus California. And I want to use theme parks as an example, right? Because DeSantis just reopened the state, and I have a feeling that Walt Disney World there, for example, is going to see a lot more people. In fact, anecdotally, I've heard crowds have been going up for the last few weeks, and there's more availability for reservations now because this happened. Josh D'Amaro, the chairman of Parks and Resorts for Walt Disney, is like saying, please, please, please open up Anaheim. There's 80,000 people's jobs that are at stake in just that community alone. Why is like a state like California continuing to not try to find that right balance between trying to get people back to work while saving lives?
That's the mystery, Glenn, and that's what we need to figure out. And again, if we could post this pandemic, if we could take the names and the R's and the D's off of every state and just say, let's look at the state, forget about the politics of it, determine what didn't work, I think we'll be better. We'll be better served for when something like this happens again. But you made a good point a second ago about protecting every single life. I have a dear friend. We've been friends since high school. He's worked for 30 years at one of the largest insurance companies in the world. And if I said their name, everyone would know it because they're on TV all the time. He said, you know, if you lowered the speed limit in the United States to 10 miles an hour, the 37,000 people per year in car accidents would be lowered to 1,000 people. Right in those numbers, right? But we as a society have said, you know, we're not going to lower it to 10 miles an hour, right? We recognize there's a risk in almost everything we do. It doesn't mean that we don't value those. That's ridiculous. But you can work yourself into such fear that you destroy everything around you to protect one thing. And then you wake up one day and you realize, oh, that wasn't worth it. And so sometimes we have to think about that. There are safe ways to go about our lives, even during this pandemic.
That's right.
But getting back to policy, you know, you just people need to ask themselves, and you're hearing this message, vote, 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 vote. Totally agree. Everyone should vote, but everyone should vote informed, right? Look at the policies that your local politician is espousing. And I can tell you this, if their only message is how bad the other guy is, you probably ought not vote for them. I'm not telling people how to vote. I'm just making a suggestion.
No, I agree. And I think all of us really need to ask our representatives answers to the issues that matter most to us. And I'm so tired of the deflection when you ask a question of a politician and all they do is talk about, well, the other guy did this. I don't care about whataboutisms. I care about what you are going to do for our industry and my community to help us. So Chip, I got a great question coming from here talking about the news and stuff. With so many variety of news sources offering their agenda versus sticking to facts, do you pick and choose invitations to appear, or do you accept every interview request in the spirit of getting the AHLA message out? I think I know the answer to that.
I accept virtually every one. I mean, there have been a few we couldn't do because we couldn't verify the news source.
Yes.
But none is better than no vacancy. That's number one on our list.
Thank you.
I mean, as long as it's not conflicting with no vacancy, So last, for example, I was on CNN, and then 2 hours later, I was on Fox Business. And obviously, if you watch those two networks, their views of the world are completely different. But our message is the same no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's essential for you to get out there because that is what matters, not worrying about partisan bickering and all of that kind of stuff. But I do think, just to make a little bit of commentary, why people are so confused once the 24-hour news cycle was created and Fox News and MSNBC came on, they started mixing news with commentary. When Fox News first started, at the top and bottom of every hour, they had pure news. And then they went into the commentary stuff, and it was clearly delineated. Those lines on all news channels have kind of evaporated, and I don't think the American public has been educated enough to understand the difference between a news piece and political commentary and opinion. So I think that's where a lot of that is coming from. You can comment on that if you'd like, or we could go on to another topic. But I thought that was important to say out there.
When you can pick and choose the news that already conforms with what you believe to be the truth, then you'll never hear an opposing viewpoint.
That's true. And it's worse on social media because they're using artificial intelligence that winds up reinforcing the things that you like. So if I do a thumbs up or something, then all I get is information based on that. So everybody, please try your best to look through the confusion that's being sowed by media, because really their agenda is to sell advertising and get eyeballs on there. Their agenda is not necessarily to be ultimately truthful with you. And we could argue about whether or not that was ever the case in news and history. We could go back to Hearst and all of that, and the way that he demonized the cannabis industry, for example, because of he wanted to have papers for his forest, blah, blah, blah. That's a story for another day, and not what Chip Rogers is here to talk about. Chip?
Look, Glenn, I'll tell you this, and this is probably the best study I've seen, and it's completely nonpartisan. There's an investment firm called Franklin Templeton. Many of you heard from it, one of the U.S. largest investment firms. They teamed up with Gallup, who obviously everyone knows the Gallup polling agency, and they took what are the facts around coronavirus, like who's most likely to get the virus, who's most likely to die from the virus, what those rates are and everything. They then went and polled people and asked the same questions, like, who do you think is most likely to get the virus, this age group, who's most likely to die from it? And it's unbelievable, the difference between truth and their personal reality, right? And because facts are facts, you can't change them. And so if you get a chance, look at the Franklin Templeton study. It will really scare you. And the reason that it will scare you, and what they pointed out, is that people have been misled so far down one path about this virus that they are afraid to make rational economic decisions. And that's what's hurting our economy. And so Franklin Templeton's point was, as an investor, and you're looking at this and you recognize that a large portion of the American population is so wrong, or there's such a disconnect between facts and reality, or the facts of what is actually happening and what their personal reality is, that they're making terrible, terrible decisions, and it's impacting all of us. And I think you can look at that from whether kids are in school or not, what's happening with your favorite stocks and tech stocks and non-tech stocks, what restaurants are open. It's impacting everything we do.
Yeah, it sure is. So it's so frustrating, and I feel we could just go around and around on this topic all day long, Chip. But one of the things that really frustrates me is that people are citing change of opinion and changing their minds about this as evidence that that person is always wrong. Science learns, things change, and we need to be flexible in our opinions to make judgments based on today's facts and understandings, not what so-and-so mayor or governor may have said 4 or 5 months ago before things have changed. So that's just kind of my call for everybody. Think about what's going on today.
Yeah. No, perfect example. Look, when this first started, and Glenn, I know you're from New York, and it hit New York first and hardest.
Yes.
Not first, but certainly hardest. The governor there and the medical experts were telling him, we need more ventilators. We've got to have more ventilators. Then all of a sudden, a bunch of ventilators were shipped to New York, and they never got used. Why? Because science learned that maybe putting everybody on a ventilator wasn't the right thing to do, that there were other ways to treat this that were safe and more effective. And so, I'm not going to sit here and blame Cuomo, because when it first hit, he wanted more ventilators, because that's what the scientists and the medical experts were telling him he needed. Yeah. And so, yes, we all learn as this thing progresses, but that's part of it. We've got to learn and accept the facts as they exist today, not what we thought they were 6 months ago.
That's exactly right. I am going to blame De Blasio, though, because that's easy. Yeah, Mark Ergang, he is he runs the board over at the Long Island Hospitality Association, which I'm happy to say I was recently appointed to. I mean, no Broadway, no restaurants, no Met, no ballet, no New York in-person sporting events. It's going to challenge our industry for years, he says. I think the Mets said they're not coming back till next fall at this point. That's absolutely crazy. I don't understand why they need to make these declarations that they're going to stay closed for so long. Why can't they just say for the next month, we'll figure out more and make a decision in a month from now or something? Any idea what might be behind that and how we could change that bad habit of closing down our economy for another year?
Well, it is a bad habit, and I'm not sure what the Met is looking at, but I agree with you. I've not seen any science that tells me you have to stay closed till next fall. In fact, I haven't seen any science that says you have to be closed today. But I think more concerning for me is because what our industry is getting hit by is a lack of business travel, events, and conferences.
That's right.
And I want people to think about this. You had all of these high-profile tech companies who are making a fortune off of people using the technology that we're using right now,
Right.
but also being locked up in their home and working from home, right?
Mm-hmm.
These tech companies are just making billions. Look how much Jeff Bezos' net worth has gone up just since February. Now, for these same companies to come out and say, oh, we're not going to have our workforce go out and travel until next summer. Do you think that there might be a reason they're saying that other than a medical reason or a fiscal reason? Well, it is a fiscal reason, because they benefit when everyone stays in this lockdown. And what's sad is you see all these other smaller companies who don't know a lot better. Glenn, they look at it and they say, well, wait a minute. If all these Silicon Valley companies aren't letting their employees travel, maybe we shouldn't let our employees travel. And they don't think about the fact, well, wait, it's in the Silicon Valley companies, it's in their best interest to do this, but it may not be in your company's best interest to do it.
Right. Yeah. And that's absolutely right. I encourage everybody to not just blanket say, don't travel. That doesn't make any sense. And it's going to hurt so many people by doing that. I understand that a lot of companies have been pinched financially. And I totally get when we start seeing each other in person, Chip, at some of these conferences, there'll probably be fewer people. But I think that'll be more of a mechanism of not having a cash flow as opposed to people not having the desire to go to these events. The more I get out, the more comfortable I am. It seems normal. I don't even care about wearing a mask anymore. It all seems pretty easy peasy now to me.
Well, look, I mean, there's still a case to certainly be made for wearing a mask indoors. But I think the science is also proving, we all got caught up in March, and this goes back to our discussion about the science evolving. And everyone thought that the coronavirus was going from surface to human. Mm-hmm. And now we realize that it is very unlikely that it would go from a surface to a human. And I'm not suggesting people need to clean the surfaces less. What I'm saying is that our concern should shift not towards touching a table that someone else may have touched 6 hours earlier. Right. The concern should shift to being indoors, being confined in an area with a lot of other people, and staying very closely associated with those people for a long period of time. That constant long-term exposure is what we know today to be the way that the virus has spread. And so we need to evolve with that. But being in a hotel room poses literally no risk unless you're crammed in there with 20 people you don't know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've all gotten comfortable being with our own pods of people at this point and being smart. All right, Chip, what next before we wrap up? Any call to action that everybody here should take?
Yeah, look, so we still have our call to action going, and this is where I really need your help. Hotelsact.org. Again, hotelsact.org. I know I've said this before. But if you're watching me now, and if you're saying, what can I do to help? And you can't afford to spend any money, this is absolutely free. It's free. It's very, very simple, and it's very quick. You can do this in 90 seconds. Sign up at hotelsact.org, and what that does is it sends a letter to your elected officials from you, a letter we've already populated, laying out the priorities for the hotel industry and what we need. We've generated over 200,000 of those so far back since this started in March. Just in the last week, we've been able to generate over 20,000. We need another 20,000 before Congress leaves, and they're leaving any day now. So please help us with that message.
All right, I'm going to do that right away. So look out, Schumer. Look out, Gillibrand. Look out, Zeldin. I'm coming after you, both sides of the aisle there, because we need help, and we need you folks out there to please do your part so all of us could get back to business. This being on the sideline thing sucks. I had so much fun, Chip, going to the Best Western's headquarters last week. It felt so good to be amongst industry professionals again and doing the stuff that we love to do. And I want everybody else to have that feeling again going forward. And I will tell you, when I stayed at the Mountain Shadows Resort, they had a big meeting going on over there, which was also really nice to see. So Chip, any final thoughts?
No, Glenn, thanks. Sorry I didn't get to see Anthony today, but thanks for doing what you do. I know the show is becoming more and more popular, and most of it is due to your incredible talent. And thank you for having me. And I look forward to being back on with you again very soon with better news.
Yes. And I'll tell you, Chip comes on from time to time. As soon as something important happens, he's willing to come on and share it with you. So Chip, thank you so much for being here, man. I am so praying that I can see you in person again one of these days, man. Keep up the good work. And thank you so much for being the voice and the face of our industry and not letting those jerks on Capitol Hill get away with anything. All right. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Take care. Woo! That was a good one. Let's bring back in producer David. David, I'm all amped up, man. I don't think I've been like this in a while. I'm so goddamn angry that our government is just not doing anything to help us out. And look, man, you are getting so screwed right now because your hotel company, good people trying to do the right thing, they were put in a position where you had no choice. They had to finally pull the plug on you at that hotel. How does all of this make you feel?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to follow.
I can't hear you. Oh, but now I can. Go for it.
Can you hear me now? Yep. I was going to say it's kind of hard to follow, obviously what Chip was talking about. But yeah, it's this whole thing obviously impacts me on a very personal level. Recently, as you said, was switched from furlough to layoff, and through no fault of my company.
Right.
I preface this
all. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
David has always thought that they were trying to do the right thing under extremely difficult circumstances.
They have, from start to finish. They've done their best to do the right thing by me and by all the employees. So I have nothing negative to say about them. I have all the gratitude in the world to them. But it all comes down to a business decision. And we are a hotel based out of New York, Lower Manhattan in New York, and unfortunately, a lot of the business in the city in general, but especially down in Lower Manhattan, is not going to be returning, you would think, anytime soon. And that goes to Chip talking about the business traveler, especially. And tough decisions, unfortunately, had to get made. And it's disheartening for me, again, from a personal standpoint, because not only is this, of course, messing with my personal life, my home, my family, but also my career trajectory, right? I worked very hard to be in the position that I was, as many other people in this industry have, and was on a really nice path, as many other people in the industry have been. And unfortunately, for a lot of us, that long and hard work has unfortunately been taken away to this point. And of course, it doesn't ever just get evaporated, but it is a significant step back. And it is a very disheartening feeling. And it's something where people really have to, are questioning their decisions to be within the industry. A lot of talented people are probably going to leave the industry.
Yep.
Anthony talks about it, and you talk about it all the time, of younger generations of hoteliers, whether they're in school or potentially going into school, maybe not pursuing the industry. So this whole thing is just going to have a really negative ripple effect from, I think, a lot of different aspects of our industry. And it's not really, the scary part is there's no real certainty on when it's going to end. It's so up in the air still.
Yeah, it certainly is. So I'm totally going to do something really super cheesy right now. Mike Memphis Madness, he canceled 16 trade shows and events in 2020. There's a lot of companies out there that haven't done that. Why not get your marketing message out with us here on No Vacancy Live instead? You're not seeing people in person. Talk to David. Talk to me. Let's get you guys on the air and represent your products. All right, enough of the shameless plugs right now. We actually do have some advertisers coming on board, so I'm very excited about that, and I hope you'll be able to support them. But I did, before we go, want to talk about this awesome Mountain Shadows Resort behind me. David, I was so impressed. What an incredibly beautiful place. These pools, I don't know if you could see them, absolutely spectacular. Everything was absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to bring on another green screen of what my room looked like, because I was really impressed with that as well. Boom, check that out. Let me get out of the way. Over there. Really just absolutely gorgeous room. I love the private balconies that they had there. Everything was absolutely spot on with the decor. And I got to tell you, David, the service was phenomenal. They made me feel at home. They made me feel really comfortable. And their Heart 61 restaurant, absolutely incredible. I had such an amazing pork chop. I had an incredible hamburger. I had a number of other incredible things as well. So kudos to the team there for being able to deliver such high quality foods in such difficult circumstances. So congratulations, Woodbine guys. I really would like to have you on the show to talk about that. I'm a big fan of your Hotel Emma as well, and I'd love to hear from you. So it's nice. I'm sorry, David, when you went away, you didn't have that same sort of comfortable experience, right? You just had an experience too that just happened to you.
Yeah, unfortunately, not officially, or not initially, I should say. So my wife and I went away to Philadelphia for a couple of days to celebrate an anniversary. We went down and booked a local hotel right in Center City. If you're familiar with Philadelphia at all, we're right near City Hall. And really, as soon as we checked in, the elevator doors closed, and my wife says, "I'm not really so sure about this place. There's a bunch of dust on the elevator doors." So then we get to the room. We have a beautiful room, great view of the city. And unfortunately, as we opened the windows, there were hand smudges, other types of marks on the window, same thing on the in-room mirror. And we were there for maybe 3 minutes, and we said, we're leaving. We packed up and left, and we stayed at a hotel right next door. We paid $70 extra a night, and I didn't think twice about it, because from the second we walked in that hotel, we felt clean, comfortable, safe. This isn't to say that the initial hotel, the first hotel, their employees were great. They really were working hard to provide quality service for the little bit that I was there, but it didn't matter. The second we kind of felt uncomfortable, we walked right out, because we were not about to put ourselves at risk. And I'll put this out there as well. As a hotel employee, I'm very understanding of things, right? I'm very laid back, and I don't really complain too much. I also, in non-COVID times, these types of little issues wouldn't have got us to leave. We would have either cleaned it ourselves or just asked housekeeping to come upstairs real quick. But in the current landscape, that just kind of tells an overall sign of I can't trust the other parts of cleanliness in this room.
That's right.
And without hesitation, we left and paid more next door.
Right. All right. Now I'm going to complain about that for a little bit. And I know that all the hoteliers that are watching this program are not going to allow something like that to happen. But let me say to the other ones of you the people who are in charge of that hotel, how dare you? How dare you not take care of your guests at a time like this? And bigger point is, you're screwing our entire industry by not doing a basic job out there. How many people are going to stay in your hotel and say, this place sucks, I'm not going to travel again, and then spread the word and prevent all of us from making money, for all of us from getting back to work, and all of us recapturing our lives? So all of you hoteliers out there that are being lazy, that are not getting the job done, enough. Get your act together. You're not just hurting yourselves, you're hurting absolutely everyone, and I am not going to take it at all anymore. I'm sick of that. It's disgusting. More than ever, David, they need to be working harder.
Yeah, and you think about what I was talking about with the price differential, right? Coming into COVID, there was a lot of discussion, especially in Manhattan, that the industry, or I should say the guests, were becoming very price sensitive, right? It was so much about the hotel, it was more about which place was cheaper. Well, now it's about which place is cleaner. And I gladly paid more money to stay at the cleaner place. So if you're a hotel and you're trying to recover, and you're trying to keep those rates established and keep rate integrity, cleanliness is the way. People are not going to just pay cheap rates and stay at an unclean hotel. They will pay more to be in a place they feel comfortable. At least I did.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. I don't need to keep complaining about that. Don't do what that hotel that David do. Do what the amazing folks over at Mountain Shadows do. That place was clean. They clearly communicated everything. And I should say, they did not offer daily housekeeping. Great. I was fine with that. They replenished everything that I wanted to. I felt like I was taken care of, and they were responsive to my needs without having to go out of the way to deliver what they normally would have been doing in pre-COVID times. I felt more comfortable. They felt more comfortable. Together, it was a successful experience for both the hotel and for the customer. Think about that.
And also, if I may, times like this is when hotels, whether they're independents or branded, can really develop that personal relationship with customers, with guests, right? So right now, for example, you're here telling our entire show how amazing this place is, right?
Right.
You're not getting paid for this. This is free advertising for them. You're going to tell all of your friends. You're going to tell everybody you work with. You're going to potentially go back there if you have to go back to that area. Same thing for me. The hotel that I stayed at, the second hotel that I stayed at, I'm going to recommend to all my friends and family, right? But
give them a plug.
No, that's all right, because it's very close to the other hotel, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot. But point being is that if you can make that connection, you can make a guest feel really comfortable and safe. That word of mouth value is going to be increased tenfold, because they're going to tell everybody about the amazing experience they had their first time back out. The first time they went out with their family, you're talking about your trip to Rhode Island. It's a major experience. It's a major emotional connection again. And as we all know, word of mouth is the most important, or at least the strongest version of marketing, also the cheapest. If you can get that to happen, you're going to be in such a better position coming out of this.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I've said it on this show time and time again. Before, a lot of hotel stays were fungible. Nobody could really tell the difference in their mind 6 months later where they stayed. It was so hard to compete that way. People traveling less and people being so on edge, now is your opportunity to be forever rooted in somebody's psyche, forever to be rooted in their friends and family psyches from the stories that they're going to share about what a great experience they had. My son telling me about that, about the Hilton Providence, owned by the Prokashanti Group, by the way, that is going to resonate. Next time I go back there to Rhode Island to see family, damn right I'm going to think about staying at that hotel because we felt comfortable and they did the right thing by us. David, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, appreciate you letting me join the show today and sit in for Anthony. I know it's a big seat to try to fill, but looking forward to getting him back on the show when he gets to Vegas and seeing how we're looking out there and our friends from Nevada.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. That's Wednesday. Now tomorrow, we're going to be, the Westchester Hotel Association is actually doing an in-person event. And I'm actually doing a speech in person, learning about all of the incredible things and all of the amazing people that we've had on this show over the last 6 months. So I'm really excited to be speaking to that group. We're going to have a couple of folks from their board on the program tomorrow, assuming I don't screw up the technology. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, before we wrap up, guys, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866. That's hotel to 66866. Please find us on Facebook. Subscribe to our Facebook page at No Vacancy News. It would mean a lot to me. I'd really like to start building up that audience so other people can find us out there. I have no idea the mysteries of YouTube and how it works. If anybody out there has any tips on how I can help build our YouTube audience, I'm already giving them content, which I think you guys respond to. Let's try really hard to, if anyone knows any ways we could get more people to see it, I'd appreciate that advice. David, anything that you want to say? Any calls?
No, I mean, what else is there to say? At this point, Chip kind of said it all. So looking forward to continue working with you guys. I appreciate you guys letting me be involved with the No Vacancy Live show on the backside of things while I'm, currently not working. So thank you to you guys for bringing me along this journey.
And if anybody needs somebody that handles revenue management, I think I know a guy that can help you. So reach out to us. Please, if you think that there's an opportunity for David out there, we'd love to figure out a way to get him employed, but not too employed that he has to leave us. Just employed enough that he could take care of his family and still find time for us.
At 12 and 1, I'm up.
Yes, if you could offer his lunch between 12 and 1, that would be a match made in heaven. Plus, we'll give you a free subscription to the No Vacancy newsletter. Oh, wait, that's already free. All right, ignore that last part. Just give David a job. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'll try to be a little bit calmer tomorrow, but I guess the double dose of Chip Rogers and Yom Kippur has got me in fire today. I am fed up, Brandy. I am fed up, and I'm sick and tired of politics at this point. I turned off all the news channels. I don't have anything to do with them anymore because they are poison. They're infecting my soul. They are infecting my mind, and all they are doing is stoking division. And what we need to do, we need to come together. We need to have more love. We need to have the community like we formed here. I feel like we're all in it together. I feel that love, and we need to capture that back nationwide. All right. Hey, thank you, Maritza. That would be really helpful. That's why I love the show. Community coming together. Okay, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much. Remember, you've got one life, so blaze on. Dave, you got to wrap it up.
I'll steal from Anthony. Be kind to yourself.
All right.